So thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm going to try and say Welsh. So, hello fi enw I Udi Kate. For the non-Welsh speakers in the audience, hello, my name's Kate. As has already been said, I'm a big social media exponent, and we've got a hashtag for our tour. So if there are tweeters in the audience, which I know there are, please use the hashtag, and we're going to storify everything at the end once I recover from this mammoth journey. So we're trying to tie all our talks on the tour to something personal about the place that we come to. Now, I've only been to Cardiff once in my life, and it was to come to a rugby match, and Wales played Scotland and Wales won. But the other thing about Wales is that I've made some friends through Twitter, and one of the first people that I met on Twitter, in real life from Twitter, was Welsh Gastock. And we randomly met in Amsterdam, and this is our minibar, which we emptied. So I'm sure people know Dave Jones. I don't think he's here because he was on nights. Anyway, so rewind a few years, and it's July 2011. I'm 29. I'm in my third year of training to become a consultant in medicine for older people. I'm happily married to my husband Chris. We're thinking about having a family. We've got a lovely home in Wakefield, a great supportive network of family and friends. And we decided that we'd take a holiday to California. Chris has family out there, and we took his grandma out to meet her new great-grandchildren. It was a lovely holiday. As you can see, the weather's perfect, and we're at a vineyard, which is obviously what you have to do when you go to California. I'm making out like I like alcohol here, aren't I? So we're having a great time, but we don't actually have many pictures of me during this holiday because I'm not feeling very well, and I'm actually being a bit grumpy because I don't feel very well. And the moment that I stepped off the plane, I got this really niggly right-sided back pain that just won't go away. And I started to go off my food, and that smile is a very forced smile. So this gets worse and worse and worse until Chris, as a non-doctor in our relationship, decides that enough is enough and that we needed to go and seek some medical attention. So we ended up in an emergency room in America, where after very little investigation, I was found to be really very unwell. My creatinine was over 600, and after an ultrasound and CT, they found the reason for that was that my abdomen and my pelvis were full of tumours. Bang, out of the blue, at the age of 29, with no family history, I was riddled with cancer. That was obviously a very tough time. We had to come to terms with all that, being miles and miles away from my family and friends, and I was very sick and needed to sort myself out. So a kind urologist put some stents in my ureters for me and got my kidneys working again, and we took the decision that we wanted to come home. So we got the flight back to the UK and started our journey with the NHS. I was soon admitted to hospital once we returned home, and I became very unwell again. The stents failed. I ended up with bilateral nephrostomies. I had a serious episode of pyelonephritis, and there were times during that period of my life that I really thought I was going to die there and then. I was never going to be well enough for chemotherapy. But I did get better during that time, and the histopathologists behind the scenes were working out what was wrong with me. From the moment they put the slide under the microscope of my biopsy, they knew that I didn't have my presumed ovarian cancer. They were dealing with something much, much rarer. And it took them 3 weeks and all their fancy immunohistochemistry to work it out. I had a desmoplastic small round cell tumour, which is a very rare type of sarcoma. It just affects 1 in 2 million people and usually affects adolescent males. So why it was picking on a middle-aged woman, I don't know. It had spread to my liver and my bones, so I was in a non-curative palliative situation from almost day 1 of my diagnosis. That was obviously tough times. We had to make some big decisions at that point about what we did. A big proportion of people with this cancer don't respond to chemotherapy at all, but some people have a very good response to chemotherapy. Chemo is very tough, it's very intensive, and it makes you very ill. So I had to decide what I was going to do, and whether I was going to medicalise the rest of my life, if it was going to be short, or whether I was going to roll that dice. We did go with chemotherapy, as you can see in the picture, and it was a very tough time. I was in and out of hospital. I had febrile neutropenia with every cycle. I needed multiple blood and platelet transfusions. I had bleeding complications from my cyclophosphamide. I was really very sick. I had 5 cycles of chemotherapy, and my cancer responded really well, and I was one of the lucky ones. But after 5 cycles, I started to feel that the burden was outweighing the benefit. So we made the decision on New Year's Eve 2011 that we were going to stop chemotherapy. Because I wanted to do one thing, and one thing only really. From the moment I'd met my new oncologist in that August, he told me that I wasn't going to work again, and I was determined to prove him wrong. So I went back to work 3 weeks after I made that decision, back to the stroke unit at Pinderfields at the time. I love being a doctor. I think it's a great privilege. I'm very proud of my profession, and looking after older people is really what I do. Having that taken away from me for 5 months of my life was really stressful. So I went back to work, and we had a period of time, 18 months really, of very good quality life. I had a few health problems during that time, but nothing really that significant. I was able to progress with my career. We ticked our bucket list, and really did loads of fantastic things. But then in September 2013, I started to feel unwell again. I had some symptoms suggestive of a partial bowel obstruction, and that meant that my cancer was starting to progress again, and a CT scan confirmed that after I got the courage to say that something was going on. I obviously had big decisions about chemotherapy, and Chris had his views, and our family had their views, and it was difficult to work out what to do. But because I'd had such a good response first time round, we decided that it was worth another shot. So I had 4 cycles this time. It was just as bad. I developed lots of multi-resistant organism infections, which became increasingly difficult to treat, and I was very sick at times during that chemo. But my cancer responded, and I started to feel better from that point of view. So we got through the chemo, and guess what? I went back to work again. That was great to get back to my work and to do all the things that I've been doing, which I'm going to tell you about today. I was then well for 12 months, and managed to even get to the point of acting up as a consultant in my own specialty, which it was amazing to do, something that I'd spent 10 years of my life training to do, and I really, really enjoyed that. But unfortunately, during that time, I started to feel unwell again, and I got enough nous about my own body now to know that it was cancer again. So we had a scan just before Christmas that showed that things were getting worse. We had to keep that information from the family to have a nice Christmas, and then deal with the decision making afterwards. Because I'd had my lifetime limit of a lot of the chemotherapy drugs in the first 2 rounds, we had to change drugs, and unfortunately I didn't tolerate the new drugs very well at all. I had intractable vomiting and ended up on the bathroom floor for 2 days straight. It was horrendous, and I had equally difficult problems with infections. So I managed to have 2 cycles, which is what I said to Chris I would try, and then I just couldn't carry on. I wasn't strong enough, I just couldn't. So we stopped, and I was very unwell and quite down in myself for the last few months. But for the last 3 weeks, I've been starting to feel more like my own self. So guess what? I'm going back to work. So that's a very exciting day on the 29th of June. I'm going to get back with a stethoscope round my neck and doing what I love to do. So that's my story in a nutshell. I've been through a lot of healthcare during that time. I've had operations, I've had radiology procedures, I've had numerous scans, I've been on oncology, urology, gynecology wards, I've been through the emergency department, I've had numerous admissions through the oncology admissions unit, I've had lots of chemotherapy through their ambulatory care unit in Leeds, I've met my GP numerous times, I've had input from district nursing. So I've seen a lot of what the NHS has to offer. And during that time, as a healthcare professional myself, I've had a lot of opportunity to stop and reflect about healthcare and what does care mean, what is compassion, what matters to me, what makes a good doctor, what makes a good nurse. And those things have really helped me to reflect on the things that matter to me. And how I could be a better doctor with my own experience, and how I can share my own experiences to make other healthcare professionals more aware of the patient experience. So what I did with all those thoughts is try and distill them down into some values that are important to me. It's very trendy to have values now. Lots of healthcare organisations are developing their organisational values, but I think it's important for us all to think about our own core values as people, and for me it's both as patient and clinician. So the first thing that really matters to me is communication. When people communicate with me well and sensitively and think about the impact of what they're going to say to me, on me, I tend to have a good experience. When it's less sensitive and a bit clumsy and perhaps on occasion rude, that's when I have a poor experience. So communication isn't just something that we tick a box to say we've done our communication skills training. It's something we learn throughout our careers, and it's something that we really need to think about as human-to-human information sharing. The second thing that really matters to me is that the little things matter. When I say little things, I mean somebody sitting down next to you rather than looming over you. Somebody taking your hand when you're upset. Somebody maybe listening to you just for that extra moment so you can express your fears and anxieties. Somebody getting you a drink. Somebody maybe noticing you're in pain without you having to say. Those little things that we can all do, tiny acts of kindness that we do every single day without even noticing, really make a difference to our patients. They're what we take away as patients from a healthcare experience, and they're what we can make the difference between a good and bad experience. I'll always remember the consultant oncologist on a Saturday evening who'd had to come in and see me because I was really unwell, and I felt guilty that he had to be there. But he was really kind to me that evening. He did everything he needed to do and spoke to all the different specialties that needed to be involved. But I'll remember one thing, and that was that he knelt down beside me, put his hand on my arm and said, "Kate, you're going to be okay. We're going to get you through this." In that one tiny moment, he'd recognised my fear and my vulnerability and responded to it with compassion. He probably doesn't even know that he did that, but I'll always remember that he looked after me that evening. The third thing that matters to me is person-centred care. Now, this has become a very buzz phrase in the NHS that gets bandied around a lot, but as a patient, person-centred care is really, really vital. A lot of the time I've spent standing on the periphery of my care whilst people are making decisions about me. Now, anyone who knows me in the audience will know that I want to be involved in absolutely everything, and being a passive bystander is not my style. So person-centred care is really, really vital, and it's when you're a junior doctor, for example, seeing past your jobs list to see the people on the end of those jobs and what those jobs mean to them, instead of just ticking off that you've checked some blood tests, for example. The fourth thing that really matters to me, and that's kind of linked in with person-centred care, is that I want to be seen as a person. I don't want to be seen as that girl with DSRCT or bed 7, would you like a cup of tea? I don't want that, and that's happened to me. Going into hospital is a dehumanising experience, no matter how good the care, because we strip away all the things, the levels of independence that people have. We take their tablets off them and give them at the wrong times. We feed them at times when we say we should be fed, rather than letting them eat when they want to eat. We tell them when they're going to have to go to sleep. It is a dehumanising experience, but then to have your name taken away or be numbered makes it even worse. I am passionate about lots of things, and I would say that cancer is pretty low down on the list of things that are important about me. So I've got a wonderful husband, I've got 3 nephews and a niece who I love very much. I like baking, and anyone on Twitter will know that. I play a flute in a local wind band. Chris and I love to charity fundraise. We're doing a 10k in July. There's lots of things about me that matter. And you might think that that's all the woolly stuff about medicine, and it doesn't really affect the care we give. But I would challenge that. We look after lots of older patients on my ward, and one particular lady is a world record breaking speed knitter. Now, unfortunately, this lady has dementia, but how do you calm her down when she's distressed? You don't reach for the haloperidol, you give her a ball of wool and some knitting needles, and it works. So knowing that about this lady makes her care better. These are my stents. They're very important to me. They mean that I can live an independent life without nephrostomies, which is really horrendous, having done it for 4 months. It means I can come to Cardiff and speak to people and do lots of wonderful things like jumping out of aeroplanes. But they do need to be replaced every so often because they get a bit gunky. So I had that operation in August 2013. And everything went very smoothly. I was out of hospital very quickly. But unfortunately, 36 hours later, I developed a fever and rigors and was really quite unwell at home. So we had to go back into hospital via the emergency department, where I was triaged by a sister that I used to work with, and it was lovely to catch up with Katie and see her again. Then I was seen by a junior doctor from the surgical team who was one of the doctors, and it was really hard to extract his name and his role. I did achieve that, but it was hard work. Then I was cannulated by a clinical support worker or a healthcare assistant, I'm not sure which, because she didn't have a name or a role. Then a nurse came to put my antibiotics up, and she didn't have a name. Perhaps more importantly, she didn't check my name or my allergy status. And the whole time she was speaking to another nurse about another patient. So I might as well have not been there. I might as well have been one of those mannequin arms you get in clinical skills centres. Then I met Brian, and Brian restored my faith somewhat. He was the porter. He had a name. He noticed that I was in pain as I got onto his trolley, and he helped me. He got me a pillow and a blanket so that I was more comfortable. And then he pushed me really carefully over the bumps in the corridor of St James's. The whole time he was talking to me and Chris in such a reassuring manner. He was doing those little things that really matter to patients. I hate being pushed around a hospital that I know. It's a horrible experience, wondering at which next turn you're going to bump into somebody that you know and whether they're going to blank you or you're going to have a really awkward conversation. But Brian took away all that anxiety. He was amazing. I was then in hospital for just under 2 weeks. And I noticed during this time that lots of people didn't introduce themselves to me. It wasn't just one particular professional group. The consultant on the post-it wardrobe didn't introduce himself. He presumed I knew who he was. I did, but that wasn't the point. Lots of nurses didn't introduce themselves. Healthcare assistants doing your observations didn't introduce themselves. But when somebody did, it made such a massive difference to how I felt. It made me feel human again. And I'll always remember staff nurse Georgie, who was newly qualified, who'd come in the morning and say, "Good morning, my name's Georgie, I'm going to be looking after you today. Just press your buzzer if you need anything, and can I get you anything just now?" It took Georgie 30 seconds to say that phrase to everybody in the bay, but it made us all feel a little bit more relaxed about what was happening to us. So one evening I was reflecting on my experiences, as I often do with my long-suffering husband, and I call it reflecting, but Chris calls it ranting. So I was passionately expressing my dislike of the absent introductions, and Chris simply told me to stop whinging, darling, and do something. So we did. This is the birth of the "Hello, my name is," the first ever tweet I sent about the project. So Chris and I had a conversation about what we could do. What could we do to help change behaviour? And it's a universal behaviour that we need to change. So we thought, well, what have we got already? And it was the social media influence that we thought, well, Kate's really quite influential already on Twitter. Let's use that to positive effect. So we thought, well, if you're going to do something on social media, then you need a catchy hashtag. And Chris coined the "Hello, my name is," and he likes to get the credit for that. So I'm dedicating the credit to him today, and I won't get in trouble now. So this is the first ever tweet, and it was the 31st of August 2013, so nearly 2 years ago, and I can't believe what's happened since. The idea was that we were going to use social media primarily to promote the idea of the importance of introductions and kind of encourage, remind and inspire healthcare professionals about it. So we gave the campaign a visual identity with a logo. Luckily, one of our friends is a designer, so he designed us a logo. And we incorporated a smile into that logo. That smile is there because it's very difficult to say, "Hello, my name is," and make eye contact with someone without smiling. And it's not just about saying the words, it's how you say them. So I challenge you to try saying "Hello, my name is" whilst looking at somebody without smiling. It's very, very difficult. And that makes that instant connection and relieves anxiety for our patients. So then I blogged about the experience and why we started the campaign, and invited people to pledge their support to the campaign in the sort of style of NHS Change Day. So we got thousands of visitors to the blog very quickly. Then I asked my clever IT geek brother to design us a website, which he did, where we could collate resources and pictures and links to the campaign and events and things. So that website's growing every day. Then I started to be asked to write for various journals. So this is a piece I wrote for the BMJ, and I've been interviewed for numerous healthcare journals and publications now. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like we had a social movement on our hands. And "Hello, my name is" seemed to start popping up on Twitter all the time. Every time I looked at my phone, I had 20 plus Twitter notifications, and it was keeping me very busy. The logo started to pop up on conference name badges, on clinical name badges, on people's lanyards, on screensavers, on ward introduction boards, outpatient clinics. Chief executives were blogging about it. People were having their own little selfie campaigns. the ambulance service were getting involved, the healthcare students were getting involved, and even outside of health it started to spread, so the police in some parts of the country were starting to use it. I went to the International Forum for Quality and Safety in Healthcare in Paris last year, and the reason I went there was because I had a poster about the campaign accepted, and I also was asked to speak as part of the social media meeting. But at that meeting I started to notice that Hello, My Name Is was bigger than I thought it was. People were using it and it kept popping up on the big screen, and we had some little stickers to go around and stick on everyone's name badges, and I indoctrinated one of my own healthcare heroes, Don Berwick. At the time I was working at Leeds Teaching Hospitals, and Leeds, it was the place where I had my experience, so I was very keen to try and do something big there and make it the flagship Hello, My Name Is Trust. So I went to the chief executive, the medical director and the chief nurse and said, can we do something? And they jumped at the chance. So we designed a pledge that was bigger than just introducing yourself, because this is bigger. And we sort of incorporated the idea of treating patients as you would your own family or friends, seeing the person behind the condition and respect and dignity. And we asked people to email a special address to pledge, and in return they got a badge, a personalised name badge. And then we went round the trust, well, the comms team went round the trust collecting as many photographs as they could of teams and individuals, and we've collated them into a huge photo wall now, which is a really nice representation of the whole cross-section of people that work in the trust. It's become part of the corporate induction for new starters to the trust. The chief executive is always talking about it no matter where he is, and it's really become part of LTHD culture. We had over 9,000 pledges, and there's 15,000 people work there, so we're doing really well with that. I've been asked to speak at a lot of conferences now. I closed the NHS Confederation conference last year, and we also spoke at Expo in Manchester in March last year, where we launched the inaugural Kate Granger Compassionate Care Awards, which have been running again this year, and I've just received the shortlisted nominations, so Chris and I have got an almost impossible task trying to choose winners, and then I need to concentrate on staying alive to actually present the awards in September. Hopefully this is going to work, but I'm just going to show you a little video now of my current colleagues in Mid-Yorkshire hospitals supporting the campaign. Fantastic people that I work with. So if you have an idea that is simple, costs no money, improves patient experience and really takes very little time, then politicians want to kind of be involved. I think it's called getting on the bandwagon. So we've been to see David Cameron at Number 10 and told him about the campaign, and he did his photo call dutifully. And Jeremy Hunt knows about the campaign and is posing outside the Granger Suite in Watford there. And we went to the Scottish Parliament at the beginning of the year to participate in an event that NHS Scotland had organised, and Nicola Sturgeon met us and was really engaging. If you turn to page 36 of the government's response to the Francis inquiry, then you'll find a box all about the campaign too. And it's amazing to think that my work's got all the way to the Department of Health. We did have a picture of Ed Miliband on this slide, but You might think this next slide's a bit gimmicky, but we've met a lot of people through the bucket list, being extras on Coronation Street, going to Kylie concerts and dining at Le Gavroche. And it seemed natural to ask these people to have a go as well. I think it's actually quite nice to raise the profile of something and get people talking about it. And so whenever we come into contact with celebrity, we do ask people to do a hello, my name is for us. It's very difficult to measure the impact of something like this because it's all about culture, and we can't go out there and look at every tiny little interaction that's happening millions of times every day. Although some people are trying. So we've been in Leicester on Wednesday, and they were telling us about some amazing data from their patient experience survey that's really shown a big improvement since they introduced Hello, my name is. But I can't look at every single little interaction from Hello, my name is HQ in Wakefield. I have to think about it on a bigger scale. And one of the ways you can do that is look at how much people are talking about something on a hashtag. And those numbers just keep going up and up and up. And this was quite a few weeks ago, so I haven't looked for a bit. Hopefully we'll get to 1 billion soon. It's also been a big part of NHS Change Day. Last year we had it as an individual pledge that people could sign up to, and we got 20,000 people doing that. This year it's been the basis of a lot of individual pledges, and I took part in the Change-a-thon as well. The 2nd of February was a big day in a lot of ways. So I got up early and I went to the BBC radio studios in Leeds, where I was interviewed on the Today programme, which was very scary, and then the 5 Live breakfast show, which was less scary. Then I had to get a bus to St James's, where I went up to the ambulatory chemo unit, had my ports accessed and got hooked up to my chemotherapy. I then continued my media mission through the day, speaking to various people, until I got a call from Radio 2, and I had to ask the sister if she would let me use her office to speak to Jeremy Vine on the radio. Claire said that was the most bizarre request she'd ever had from a patient. So we did have a lot of media attention, and the reason for that was that together with the Listening Into Action Network, we had done a national collaborative launch of Hello, my name is across more than 100 organisations. LIA had kindly written to every chief executive in the country asking them whether they'd like to support or not. And we got over 100 people getting back to us and saying, of course we would. And Twitter just went wild that day. Hello, my name is trended all day. We got to #1 in the UK at one point. And my phone was boiling hot from all the Twitter notifications and photos. It was really nice that the media were interested. How often do we have a story about the NHS that's about collaboration, that's positive, that's about patient experience, that's about improving care? So I was really happy to be part of the media frenzy that day to try and get things into the public's eye, because I think it's about our awareness as healthcare professionals, but it's also about patients' expectations, and they should be empowered to say, and can you tell me your name if we forget, because none of us are perfect. So that was a big day. Hello, my name is not just a UK phenomenon. I can never say that word. It's spread across Europe. I've had lots of photos from Italy this week, but also in Spain, France and Germany. It's spreading across the US slowly. If you go to Johns Hopkins University Hospital, their new doctors watch a little video about Hello, my name is and get a badge. There's quite a lot of work going on in Australia, and Change Day Australia really passionate about the campaign. It's got quite a lot of vocal advocates in Christchurch in New Zealand, but it's also in places that you might not expect. So I had a lovely email the other day from a volunteer who'd been working in Sierra Leone with the patients who have Ebola. And they obviously have big problems and physical barriers between their patients, who are often dying and need the compassion and care of others. And it was lovely for them to say that we've thought about the campaign and what we could do. So we decided we were going to put our photos on our protective equipment and write our names on our hats. And that was a really lovely way of using the campaign in very difficult circumstances, I thought. So hopefully we'll get a few more stars across that map as time goes by. So we are on tour. This is the brainchild of my husband, and unfortunately when we have an idea we usually make it come to life, so we've made a lot of work for ourselves, but that's okay. We're going to 16 organisations over a week-long period, and talking to them like we are to you today, about my experiences and what Hello, My Name is about, and what the project, how the project was born and where it's going. And this is about trying to take that momentum that we had in February and keep it going. Because Hello, My Name is a personal story from one person, but it struck a chord across the NHS. But it's important that that narrative is never lost, and people are able to hear it. So for as long as I can keep sharing my story, then I will. But why does it all matter? Shouldn't I be spending my time doing something else? And I would say it's really important introductions, particularly in healthcare. They're not just a common courtesy. They're about making a connection with another human being when they are very distressed, often vulnerable, frightened, and it's about making that human connection, about quickly building a therapeutic relationship and allowing that person to trust you. In my mind, it really is the first rung on providing compassion, rung on the ladder to providing compassionate care, and I will keep going on about it. But this is a worry of mine. I do worry that because we've got a logo and people have name badges and lanyards and there's posters around hospitals, that it is becoming a bit too corporate. This is about individuals' behaviour. It's about how we see our patients and the culture that we operate in. It's not necessarily about fancy name badges. And I really don't want to see tweets like this. It upsets me. So my plea for you today is that you take the campaign to your heart and think about how you interact with your patients and their families. But on a more positive note, this is a friends and family test card from somebody who shared it with me on Twitter. And I think this isn't just about how we make the experience for our patients better, but how we improve our experiences as staff. It's a two-way thing. And the people named on this card obviously had an impact on that person and really improved their experience of care. And receiving feedback like this is lovely as a healthcare professional, isn't it? When you get that card addressed to you, it's fantastic. And that really improves your satisfaction and makes you able to walk into work proud. So if we have anonymity in our work, then we're never going to achieve feedback like this. So what does the future hold? Well, my future is very uncertain. It's unlikely that I'll go back to chemotherapy again, although who knows what the future holds and what future decisions I'll make. So I probably only have months to live, but I still have ambitions. And as an ambitious individual, I have a big ambition for the campaign, that I would be able to walk into any NHS organisation and ask any NHS member of staff what Hello, My Name is all about. and for them to be able to tell me. I realise that's quite ambitious when there's 1.2 million people working in the NHS, but hey ho, I'll keep talking for as long as I can. And you might say, why? Well, I think it's all about legacy. I'm determined for people not to feel sorry for me, and to be that tragic young doctor who died of cancer before her time. I can't stand the thought of that. I'd rather be somebody who brought about a positive change in the NHS that really means a difference for patients, that improves compassion and really pushes patient experience to the fore. So I'm going to shut up talking now and let you ask some questions, but no talk of mine would be complete without a tiny plug for my books. So Chris and I have been avidly fundraising for the Yorkshire Cancer Centre since my diagnosis. We're up to £170,000 now, and I'd really like it to be £250,000 before I die. So if you haven't read them already, then please have a read. Thank you.